Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. It's so nice to see you all. Welcome to the CMC. CMC connects people and ideas through community conversations. We have one nearly every week, just like this one, and we're so grateful that you're here. I'm Carrie Schmidt. I'm the owner of Plentiful, which consults with nonprofit organizations and philanthropy. I am also a proud member of the CMC Board of Trustees, and I'm happy to be here welcoming you to this important conversation today. For those of you joining us by live stream, we're coming to you from the Ellis in Columbus's historic Italian village, and we welcome everyone. I think Sophia said this, we'll make another note. If you could scan the QR codes at your tables, you'll learn more about today's forum, the opportunity to take a short survey, we love feedback, and see the many organizations that support your not-for-profit Columbus Metropolitan Club. Speaking of supporters, we're so grateful for today's sponsors, the Columbus Chamber of Commerce and Huntington Bank. And thank you to our presenting sponsor for our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch, and the Ellis for hosting us. Every CMC takes a village, and we are so grateful for everyone who helps us make it happen. So thank you for support of today's program. Give them an applause. All right, now to today's conversation. The Columbus and Ohio Chambers of Commerce have similar roles. They both exist to help regional businesses thrive. These two organizations connect businesses with critical resources to new customers, and they're advocates for business-friendly policies from state and local governments. With the leaders of both chambers, including our new leader for the Columbus Chamber, today we are going to explore what's needed to keep Ohio businesses growing in an unpredictable economic climate. To introduce today's panelists, we welcome Jason Whalen with Huntington Bank. Jason, thank you. The podium's yours.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with everybody as today's forum sponsor for this important conversation. At Huntington, we believe deeply in the power of community conversations like these, where ideas are exchanged, connections are made, and the future of our region is shaped together. For nearly 160 years, Huntington Bank has served the Columbus community and beyond, rooted in our purpose of making people's lives better, helping businesses thrive, and strengthening the communities we serve. As the #1 SBA lender in the nation, we're proud to stand side by side with business owners and support them through their journeys. Today's forum is a great example of the alignment we all share in supporting not only our businesses, but prosperity throughout our communities. Strong businesses of all sizes lead to strong neighborhoods, job opportunities, and a vibrant economy. And none of this happens without critical connections, advocacy, and leadership of our chambers of commerce. Both the Columbus Chamber of Commerce and the Ohio Chamber of Commerce play a vital role in convening businesses, promoting shared agendas, and driving economic growth. Huntington is proud to be members, sponsors, and investors in both of these great organizations. We are proud to have Brant Standridge, president of Huntington's Consumer and Regional Bank, serve on the Ohio Chamber Board of Directors, and Sue Zazon, Central Ohio Regional President, on the Columbus Chamber Board of Directors. I've had the opportunity to work with both of these organizations as members of their respective public policy committees and have seen the power firsthand that these organizations are as advocates. My colleagues joining us here today can attest to the important roles that both of these organizations create in fostering partnerships among our business community. We would encourage you, as you listen to today's conversation and think about your own business, to consider joining either of these great chambers and how that could benefit your business and your relationships. We're fortunate to have with us today two exceptional leaders who champion the needs of businesses every day. Their dedication to fostering growth, advocating for our region, and creating pathways for businesses to grow and succeed is truly inspiring. Steve Stivers, in his time leading the Ohio Chamber, is a recognized transformational leader. Since taking the role in 2021, he has grown the Chamber's ability to impact public policy and provide meaningful opportunity for his members. We are grateful for his continued leadership. Derrick Clay is a well-respected and successful leader in our community. He is now stepping into his role at the Columbus Chamber at a critical time. The Columbus Chamber is a convener, connector, and advocate for thousands of businesses, from the smallest to the largest, across our region. We are excited to support Derrick's success. And so now, it's my great honor to welcome our distinguished panelists. Please welcome Derrick Clay, President and CEO of the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. Steve Stivers, President and CEO of the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. And our host, Clay Gordon, an award-winning storyteller with years of expert reporting and producing live news. Clay, we look forward to the conversation. Podium's yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? Mr. Stivers, Mr. Clay, thanks for being here today. Question. There will be some time after this for everyone here to ask a question with a microphone, and then we'll be taking questions online as well too. So we'll get this microphone situation settled in 1 second here, but I appreciate you gentlemen being on the panel today. And I just want to start with the economy. Obviously, it's doing pretty well right now, but I just want to see on the micro level here, in Columbus and statewide in Ohio, what's the economy looking like?
Having me to the Columbus Metropolitan Club, and thank you for the audience that's convened today. Everybody in this room knows that our economy is growing at an exponential pace. We are, think about this, in the last 6 months we got Anduril. We all know about Intel. Anduril is going to bring 4,000 jobs to our region. Intel is under construction right now. The Honda battery plant is nearly complete or just about complete. And so this economy is doing very well. And I think the role of our organization is to make sure that as these organizations come to our community, that they have the resources that they need to thrive. Making sure that we have a very good workforce for them, and I'm sure that we'll get into that a little more. Making sure that we have a good education system for our young people that are coming up, and a good higher education system, and not just for folks that want a bachelor's or master's degree, but making sure that we have certificate programs that specifically meet the needs of the employers that are coming to our community. So, you know, we are, as 10 TV will say, we're a boom town right now, right? We're doing very well, and it's very exciting to be a part of it.
Well, thanks, Clay. And it's great to be at the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm excited to be here with my friend Derrick Clay, who's doing a great job, already assembling an amazing team, adding to it. He's already got a great team, but adding to it at the Columbus Chamber. I'm really excited for what we're going to see here. And just because Jason Whalen brought it up, I do want to say, if you are in the Columbus area, join the Columbus Chamber. If you also care about the state and making sure the state doesn't hold back anybody in the Columbus region, join the Ohio Chamber too, but join the Columbus Chamber first. Your local chambers define our communities and help bring people together and convene people. And you know, we want members too, but I do want to make sure everybody knows they should be a member of the Columbus Chamber. So, and you know, we generally don't really compete. We do similar things at different levels, really. We're focused at the state and federal level at the Ohio Chamber, and the Columbus Chamber's at the local level, sometimes at the state level too, because the state impacts the local level. But we collaborate much more than we compete. We do happen to compete every now and then in healthcare. They have a health plan, we have a health plan. You know, price out both of them and see which one gives you the better deal. That's how the economy's supposed to work. And right now the economy is doing pretty well in Ohio. I am a little worried about a few headwinds coming at us. You know, tariffs, make no mistake, tariffs are taxes. When you tax something, you get less of it, and it will impact economic activity a little bit. That said, I think there's some good reason to have tariffs on China for sure. You know, I'm not sure we should be treating it as a bar fight where we punch everybody in sight, But we're working on that in Washington. So I am a little worried about that. I'm a little worried about inflation. Inflation's starting to pick back up. I think you could see inflation pick up to 5 or 6% by the second half of this year. That's not good, not a great thing. So that could also create some headwinds. So I have some things I'm a little worried about, but I'm super excited about where Ohio is compared to other states in our readiness to bring in new jobs and support the existing companies that are here. Clearly, we have issues with workforce. We have issues with electricity. There are some tax issues we need to talk about if we're really, truly going to be competitive. And we're excited to continue and focus on those conversations to continue to make Ohio better. I've now been at the Ohio Chamber about 3 years. I got here in late 21, and so 3 full years, just finished. In 21, Ohio in the CNBC rankings was the 12th best economy in the country. And then in 23, we moved to the 9th best economy in the country as far as economic competitiveness and ability to compete. And then last year, we're number 7. Our goal in the next 3 years is to become number 5. And then, you know, our goal is to get to number 1, but you don't go straight to number 1 unless you're the Ohio State Buckeyes.
And if I could piggyback on that.
Go ahead.
So to Steve's point, everything that they're doing at the Ohio Chamber is to support the business community. It's the role of the Columbus Chamber to be supportive of the policies that are going to make it easy for us to get to that number 1 spot. Central Ohio obviously is doing the best economically in the state, but if we do this right, we can help each one of our partners around the state. Ohio is not that big geographically. So with Columbus being right in the smack dab middle of the state, if we do this correctly, we can get suppliers from Youngstown that are doing work here in Columbus, right? We can get, I got to shout out Toledo then, right? So we can get suppliers and workers from Toledo. But it's our job as local chambers to support the things that are happening at the state level, particularly with the Ohio Chamber, so that we can make a very friendly business climate.
And I'd just like to say we love when Columbus grows because everything that grows in Columbus is part of Ohio. When Cincinnati grows, you know, 40% of it's in Kentucky, 10%'s in Indiana. When Youngstown grows, you know, part of it's really Sharon, Pennsylvania. When Toledo grows, they're really Michigan. But we still love them. It's okay. But so Central Ohio really helps all of Ohio grow. And Derrick's right about the bigger deals can have suppliers and small business impact throughout the state. When you look at the 75 corridor, straight down from Detroit all the way to Cincinnati, that's where we make things in Ohio, straight down the 75 corridor, a little bit also in the northern, sort of right on the Route 2 or Route 90. But really, the 75 corridor is the manufacturing corridor in Ohio, and we need those folks to help support Anduril and support Intel and support the Honda battery plant that are in the Columbus region.
Mr. Stivers, you mentioned inflation. Obviously, you said you think it's going to increase throughout the year too, and you also mentioned tariff too. Depending on who you talk to, that could be inflationary as well. So how
It is inflationary, yes.
And how are you? Your words. How are you communicating with the federal government on how to get Ohio the best deal for not only the state but also for Columbus?
Well, and, you know, we are in our beliefs, we are anti-tariff at the Ohio Chamber, I will say, generally. However, like I said before, the Chinese tariffs, I think, are warranted. They violate trade rules. They manipulate their currency. They dump goods into this country, and they don't follow the existing trade regimen that we have. So that is probably warranted and makes sense. We are concerned where there would be tariffs that would be really dramatically impactful. Let's talk about the Canada and Mexico tariffs that were proposed. They would have been really horrific to the Ohio economy, especially the Canadian tariffs. And the administration did, even in their announcement, say that energy would only be at 10%, everything else at 25%, but the energy alone, even at 10%, we have 6 oil refineries in Ohio, all right around Lake Erie, right across the northern tier of Ohio. 70% of the flow of fuel they get, of crude they get, is from Canada. And it would make our refineries not cost competitive. We'd see an increase at the pump in Ohio for sure, but we might actually lose one of our oil refineries, which is a really bad idea. Nobody's building new oil refineries. You don't want one to shut down. So, and they're billions of dollars of investment. So we've been in close conversations with the administration. I will say I've been impressed so far that they've used, at least with our friends, they've used the tariff as a negotiating tool. They announced the Mexico tariffs and then got a deal with Mexico and said they weren't going to at least put them in effect for now. Same thing with Canada. So we're hopeful that that pattern continues and they use them to get a little bit better deal. And I will say, Canada and Mexico have higher tariffs on our goods that go to their country than we have of theirs that come here right now, even with the USMCA in place. So I understand what the administration is trying to do, but for consumers, tariffs are always bad because you're paying more for the same goods that you had yesterday at a lower price. It protects some domestic industries, but we believe in free markets. We think Americans can compete unless somebody's cheating. That's the China thing I talked about. And so we're hopeful that we can get to some reasonable accommodation, and there will be some tariffs, but tariffs aren't the only thing driving inflation. The other thing that's driving inflation is we have a really good, fast-growing economy right now, and that drives inflation. And look at everybody's wages are going up right now, and that drives inflation. So there are lots of things that are still driving inflation, and when the Fed thought they had inflation under control in November and December, it was a little bit elusive, it turns out.
So what are you telling your members right now that are waiting on tariffs to potentially drop? How do they navigate foreign and domestic policy with this?
It's going to be a tricky situation for a little while, but I've told everybody to take a deep breath and don't do anything rash is my advice. That's just my personal advice, and just wait and see how things play out a little bit. Sadly, that's kind of where you are on some of this stuff. It's kind of above the rim, even for the stuff we try to do. We can't always have the impact we want, but right now I feel pretty good about the way things are going. The Chinese 10% additional tariff did stick. The Canada, the Mexico, the Colombia tariffs Panama tariffs have all been dropped off, at least at this point.
Mr. Clay, what are you telling your members right now here in Columbus about what's kind of happening on the international level?
Well, businesses want stability. And anytime you get a new administration in, there's always going to be a little uncertainty about what's going on within that administration. But usually there's a plan that is outlined, and you have some loose sense of timeline. That's not necessarily the case with this administration. This administration has taken a different approach. So what we're telling our members is that we're going to be closely monitoring what's happening. Matter of fact, we just hired a new Vice President of Government Affairs who's here with us today. And we're going to Washington, next week? And we're going to be talking with lawmakers about the tariffs. We're going to be trying to get additional information about how we move forward. But to be honest, nobody knows what's going on. It's a wait and see game right now.
Part of this administration is saying that we should ease up on regulations too, right? That's a very business-friendly approach. The Columbus Chamber, are your members for this, against this? What are they saying about less regulation?
Some of our members, of course, want less regulation. But you have to, when you take something away, there's a consequence to it. So we want to make sure that whatever regulations are taken away, that we fully understand what the consequence is, so that as businesses are trying to make decisions that are best for their business, that they know what they're facing.
You guys mentioned, do you want to respond?
I just want to say that our focus on regulatory reform at the Ohio Chamber, focusing especially at the federal level, is around permitting reform. Permitting reform is something that is a giant drag on economic development and growth. It takes sometimes 6 to 12 months to get permits to actually, start projects. And some of these federal permits are slowing down economic growth in Ohio. And we think it's really important that we take a look at that. On regulatory relief, we would never support regulatory reform that hurts health or safety. If regulations are there for health and safety, they should absolutely be in place. But there's a whole bunch of regulations that are not really health and safety related. They're just government bureaucracy, and we've got to figure out how to speed up the wheels to keep the economy growing.
Mr. Clay, you mentioned some of the great companies that are coming to Columbus. Obviously, Intel is building right now, Anduril, that new announcement, and then the Honda battery plant, we'll count that. It's a little outskirts, but we'll count it in. But how are we growing workers in this, in our pipeline here to support this growing industry?
Yeah. We have a wonderful higher education system here in Central Ohio. I think there's 25 plus institutions around the Central Ohio area that are, educating folks every day about how to participate in this economy. But what's important is that we have a solid public education system. We have to have a solid public education system. We also have to have, with our charter and our public schools, we got to make sure that those charter schools are on the same regulatory or are on the same playing field as our public education system. Because you're not going to be able to grow this economy if you don't have a good workforce. And a good workforce starts organically with your public education system, right? So we have to train kids when they're toddlers almost to be able to participate in this economy. That's why it's so important that early childhood education is something that this community really wraps its arms around, and making sure that those kids, as they're growing, are almost driven to an economy or an industry.
Mr. Stivers, that's the big sell to get people here to Ohio.
Yep.
How are you guys doing that?
So first of all, there's 1.5 million people who grew up in Ohio that don't currently live here. Many of them are of an age where they just maybe had kids or their parents are getting older. Those are two times in your life where you're very open to maybe moving back home. And so we need to do a better job of targeting the right people that understand Ohio, they came from Ohio, to get them back to Ohio. Maybe they won't move to that small town they grew up in. Maybe they'll move to Worthington or New Albany or Upper Arlington or Columbus, or maybe it'll be Beechwood, or maybe it'll be Kenwood in Cincinnati or someplace like that. But we need to recruit those folks. Derrick talked about one of our huge advantages in Ohio. We have colleges that dot every little town in Ohio. We import about 30,000 more students into Ohio every year than we send out. And so that's a net import to go to school here. The problem is when they graduate, too many of them leave Ohio. So we've got an initiative we're working on to connect those students while they're students at an Ohio school with Ohio employers, public and private, to have an internship. We think that will keep a lot of folks here. And I want to introduce somebody in the audience, Megan Del Rey, who grew up in Laguna Beach, California. If you don't know where that is, that's paradise. It's in Orange County, California. She went to the Ohio State University. She interned at the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, and she had no intention of staying in Ohio, but we offered her a job, and she's still here. So, and she's doing a great job for us. She's here with Robert Shenton, who a lot of you know, who was with Plant Moran, who's now running our brand new entity, the CEO Forum, which is a middle market CEO education opportunity that we love and we're excited about and is growing really fast. But she's an example of how people can do an internship and then stay in the state they didn't plan on staying in. And we've got to do so much more of that. And we've got to recruit people from outside Ohio into Ohio. And we've got to build housing for them. We just did our housing summit last week. That's the other issue that we are not keeping up with. And it's going to start to limit our growth if we don't get on it a lot more. And unfortunately, too many of our communities don't really welcome housing development. They want industrial and commercial. And when we talk about, one of the things we want to do is some tax reform. I don't think we can get done what I'd like to get done, but I'd like you to be taxed where you live, not where you work. Now, Columbus hates that, but, and we will never get that done. But right now, one of the reasons suburbs don't care about housing is because when you move there, they don't get any income tax. The city where you work gets it all. And if there was some kind of shared agreement where they got a little of it, then maybe they'd care a little bit about housing. Yeah. And I'm not, we aren't really probably going to try to get the income tax where you live instead of where you work, but I'd love to see that. It's not on our agenda, but it would certainly make people care about housing.
Yeah. We're all enjoying this tremendous growth. I've been very fortunate in my career to do some travels around the country, and everywhere that I go, people are saying that Columbus is booming. Like, this is the it city right now. We are on the map. We've always been on the map. We knew that, right? But other people are starting to notice. And Steve talked about housing and how important housing is to this community. The city of Columbus did some very monumental legislation last year with the Zone In legislation that will create more housing stock for the region. We're about 200,000 units short in housing. The Zone In legislation that was passed last year will immediately put 88,000 units into the market over the next few years. And it creates a whole new code section for zoning. The zoning laws had not been updated in this city in 70 years. But we can't stop there. The city of Columbus can't do it alone. So there has to be a regional housing strategy where the region looks at how we approach housing. And different communities, different suburbs should look at the model that was created in the city of Columbus. Because what's going to happen if we don't do that is you're going to continue to see this growth, but once people understand that there may not be enough housing or we don't have an adequate education system, then that's going to slow everything down. So in order to keep up with the momentum of growth, we got to have housing, we got to have education, and we got to have a good workforce.
I would urge everybody to, once a month, look at Columbus Business First. The housing starts are reported in the back of Columbus Business First in a little graph. They do it by county, and you can see, they even say how much they think we need and how many housing starts we had. We're woefully behind. Franklin County is doing the best. Union County's doing pretty well too. Delaware's not bad, but some of the other counties, Madison, Licking, they're not keeping up with the need even for their community, which creates a bigger problem for the whole region.
You talk about growing workers here. What about growing members at the chamber? Mr. Stivers, how are we growing members, and then how are we growing, diverse businesses as well?
Yeah, so we are growing substantially. Like I said, I've been at the chamber 3 years. When I got here in 21, we had about 6,000 members, and we had about $3.8 million in dues revenue. We closed 2011. I guess we were 3.8 all in, revenue. And we closed 2011 with about 8,000 members, and we were $11 million in revenue. And a lot of those members are joining our health plan, and they are small businesses, they're diverse businesses. We have about 65% of our members are not just small business under the SBA definition of 500 and below, they're 50 and below. So they're, fairly small businesses. They're not onesie twosies, they're not probably the pizza shop on the corner, but they are smaller businesses. And when they're a healthcare member, they're a full member of the Ohio Chamber. We include them in everything. And I know the Columbus Chamber's been growing like a weed too. They've been growing a lot. So it's a good time to be in the business organization convening world in a growing economy in both Ohio and Columbus.
And Mr. Clay, I would just say he's got a couple of years on you here, starting with the chambers, but you're catching up. Is that one of your initiatives too?
Absolutely. Membership growth is super important to any organization. But what I will say, we're about 2,500 members roughly, right? But what I'll say is membership is important, but value is even more important. Our team is working so that we create a culture where it's not even a question whether you're a member or not. You just join because the value proposition is that strong. We have programming. You know, we have a healthcare plan as well. We had our annual meeting last week where we announced several new initiatives that we're going to roll out later in the year, one being an executive relocation service. If you move to this city, whether you moved here by your company or whether you're an executive that moves to town, the Chamber should be able to help you with housing, transportation, school options. We should be that one-stop shop for you to help you get acclimated to this community, help you learn about the way we do business here, because we're a very collaborative community. So we want people that move to the city to have that same type of spirit, and we want to create that same type of culture. So our team is actively working on that. We talked about a rural business center as well. And Kelly Fuller from our workforce team is working on that as well. We're going to be reaching out to our rural chamber partners. We're not going to agree on everything, but the things that we can agree on, we want to work with them. We want to have a one collective business voice so that it makes it stronger when we go visit our friends at the legislature in D.C., so that we can have a collective voice about things that we can work on together. Another thing that we're going to be working on in the future is succession planning. How many businesses that you know of that, you know, grandpa starts a business, grandpa grows the business, very successful at the business, grandpa dies with the business, and the business is gone. So you've lost a resource from a goods or services standpoint. You've lost a trusted business partner in the community. Why can't the Chamber be that entity that helps you determine how to pass your business on to your loved one or sell your business, right? Create an ESOP. Even if you're a kid that works in the business, but you don't necessarily want to be a part of the business. When you get older, you want to go off and be a painter or something, I don't know, right? You can do whatever. But is there an option so that you can still do your life passion, but still have a stake in the business? We should be that convener of folks in being able to offer those types of products.
You want to add to that at all or no?
No, that's great. I mean, I will say I want to just, again, give a little shout out to what Robert Shenton's doing at the CEO Forum. It's an amazing opportunity for business owners and soon-to-be CEOs to get a crash course in both how to be a better CEO as well as get an immediate peer network. It's an amazing organization, partners with the Center for the Middle Market at Ohio State. We already have about 4 pods that we're working with throughout the state, 2 in Columbus already, so we're working on a 3rd one in Columbus. A pod's about 12 people. It's a pretty exciting offering that we are really growing fast.
Yeah. One other thing that I wanted to mention, because you had mentioned how are we growing our diverse businesses. Mm-hmm. So we have a very strong partnership with the Urban League of Columbus, City of Columbus, and Franklin County as a partner as well, our Urban Business Connection. And basically with that program, the city and the county, in conjunction with the Urban League, has identified over 175 businesses that we've actually paid their membership so that they can have a base membership in the Chamber. And once you're a member of the Chamber, you're exposed to all of these different services that we provide. You're exposed to our programming. You're exposed to the executives that are part of our network. And a lot of those businesses go on to enhance their membership. So that's been a very powerful program that we have done over the past few years, and we're looking to expand that as well.
I really only have time for about one more question here, and we're going to take questions from you. So if you have a question right now, make your way to the back of the room. There's a microphone. Doug Buchanan is back there with it. And I have 2 other things that I just want to ask because I think it's very important to bring up too. And it's going back to some policies out of DC.
are immigration policies, the current immigration policies, are those impacting workers here in Ohio and specifically in Columbus? And then also with DEI, how are you advising your members as they're kind of navigating both of those?
You mind? You want to start? Yeah, I'll start. So let me take the immigration question last. You can't have a active economy if you don't have DEI. You can't. You just can't. When you think about let's just take for instance, if all of our hotel workers that are undocumented left today, we would be in a lurch, right? We got the Arnold Inn this weekend. You got the big hockey game that's happening this weekend. If we do not have an adequate workforce, this economy will die. If all of our farming community that are undocumented left today, you better get those eggs, right? You better get the strawberries because it's going to be a limited supply. Now, what I'm saying is, should we be finding a path to get those folks documented and have them be an active part of our economy and our country? Absolutely, yes. Should we be taking the criminals that are in our country and people that are not doing good things here out of our country? Absolutely, yes. But we have to look at DEI through an economic development lens. As a business community, we just have to do it, because if you don't do it, you're not being wise about it. The immigration piece. Immigration is scary to a lot of people, right? I know for a fact there's members of my team that said that, you know, some of their family members or people that they know in the community are not going to school, they're not going to church because they're afraid. And that's concerning, because those are folks that are going to be our future workforce, for one. And if you have people that are not actively participating in our economy, then that's concerning too, because if we are a business advocacy organization and we're doing what we need to do to help businesses, that's not good for the economy.
Stivers, do you agree?
I'll start with immigration, then I'll get to the DEI question. So one thing I would say about immigration is there's a lot of narratives out there on immigration. I will say pay attention to what is actually happening so far. They're rounding up criminals and dangerous folks. I think we all can agree that is the right answer. Then the question and the fear, I think, is what comes next. And I get that. I think that there's not going to be, you know, mass deportations of people who are not criminals. But, you know, I understand there's a lot of fear out there. I do think we need to make sure that folks who are both here illegally and doing criminal activity are apprehended and deported, and, you know, that's a good thing for our country and it keeps us all safer. So I think we have to kind of wait and see, kind of like the tariffs a little bit on immigration. But I do think that we need to stay committed to opportunity for all. We did rename our DEI committee at the request of our members last fall, the Corporate Responsibility and Opportunity Committee. That's what they wanted us to name it. And we're a membership-driven organization. So when they wanted to change the name, we changed the name. I will say DEI, you know, when you're talking about diversity, I think there's a lot more acceptance, but DEI has gotten very political in our society, the letters DEI, and that's one of the reasons we changed the name to Corporate Responsibility and Opportunity, because we want everybody to feel good about what we're doing. And it is about opportunity for all, 100%. It is about making sure there is a business case, as Derrick said, but we think that's easier under the label of corporate responsibility and opportunity, because that's what our members told us they wanted it to be. So, and we think that works, and we're committed to it, and we're going to continue to drive forward with opportunity for all. And I think that's really important for our economy to include everybody and to make sure everybody feels like they belong and, wants to be someplace. So we're going to continue to stay involved. We did change the name, but I think a lot of businesses are going through trying to figure out how they deal with that now because there are a lot of political views of the term DEI.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, regardless, because we may even change our name too. Who knows? I mean, we're going to have that conversation at the board level because our board needs to weigh in on that. All I'm saying is you have to look at this through an economic development lens. Totally you have
agree.
to.
Totally agree with Derrick on that.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking my questions so far. Take a quick break, get some water. Don't go anywhere, though, Mr. Stivers, because we have a lot more coming up. So just kind of get some coffee. Now's going to be our time to take some questions from the audience. But before we do that, if people are live streaming and watching us on YouTube right now, this is the time to start typing it into the chat, and Doug will read off those questions for you. So without further ado, let's send it over to Doug with some questions from the audience.
Clay, thank you very much, and thank you to today's panelists. Great conversation today. We have about a little less than 15 minutes left, so we already have a long line of folks here, and we're getting quite a few questions online, too. So CMC's ground rules, always the same every week. Great questions take 30 seconds or less to ask. And what punctuation mark does a question actually end with? It ends with a question mark. Yes, they do end with a question mark. Here's one to launch us off from the live stream audience. Sally Sherman asks, for both of you, there have been a lot of disruption and uncertainty in the world with surely more to come. How do you see your organizations helping leaders to better understand and navigate through unrelenting disruptions?
So I was a military officer for 37 years, retired about a year and a half ago. And, we dealt with a lot of uncertainties. The power of the Ohio Chamber is our convening power. And we bring people together to, whether sometimes it's just, sort of make each other feel better or talk it out, but other times it's finding solutions. And in uncertain times, that convening power, I think, is very meaningful, and it's what we can do to help make everybody understand what's coming forward. We bring a lot of expertise to the table, too. We work with that, but I think the convening power is really the key.
I would totally agree with Steve. We're conveners. We look at things through a business lens, though. We look at things from an economic development lens. We have other partners that are in the community that look at it from different lenses, right? We have the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission here. I mean, the MORPC is a community voice as well. So there's so many different conveners. You have the church community that are conveners, that are talking about it from a spiritual lens, right? You have educational leaders that are talking about it from an educational lens. So we cannot be all things to all people. We don't want to try. And we don't want to try, right? But we can bring the right people to the room to have those discussions.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have the conversation. My name is Chris Ambrose Grooms. I serve as the mayor of the city of Dublin, and an organization Derrick is very familiar with. I'm following in your footsteps as the chair of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. So my question is this. Earlier this month, a MORPC delegation traveled to Washington and met with leaders from the Hill and from Amtrak. We also heard from Rodney Davis at the U.S. Chamber, Mr. Stivers' former colleague who served on the House T&I committee, and I will also add his fantasy football league. He focused on the value of public-private partnerships and opportunities, both chambers, and thank you for your support on our passenger rail initiative. But my question is, can you elaborate a bit on the value for the state of this public-private partnership together and working on big opportunities such as passenger rail?
Sure, I'll start and then let Derrick kick in too. I think we have to continue to innovate on transportation, and rail takes so many cars off the road. If we can get people to ride, and that's why we're doing this study, to make sure we know if we can get people to ride, because having a train run that nobody rides is not very useful. So, and that's not what we want. One of the things I've said to MORPC and everybody that's come to me is we are very open to this, but we want to see the business case and we want to make sure that it is sustainable economically going forward, because the last thing we want is another white elephant. But we are excited about the possibility. It's interconnecting not just in Ohio, but all the way to Pittsburgh, all the way to Chicago, all the way to Washington, D.C. We are the biggest city in the country without Amtrak service, I think. Is that still true? Okay. And we're growing every day. So we're the even bigger city without Amtrak service today than we were yesterday. So I don't want to overstate it, because I'm not going to say we're for it if the business case isn't made, but we are 100% for the study and making sure that we know the business case. And I believe it's sustainable, but I want to make sure we prove it out.
Mayor Grooms, thank you for your question. To Steve's point, we have to look at investments in transportation, super important. You remember when I was talking about we're the hub for economic development here, but we got partners in Youngstown, Toledo, Cincinnati that could be participating in this economy? It would be a lot. It would be a lot better if we had rail that could help us with that. I was in Orlando last week, got on the Sun, I think it's called Sun Rail. It is. It's great. They bought 61 miles of track to connect Tampa to connect Orlando to Tampa. Yep. And I rode it. And it was more comfortable than a car. And it's faster. They have another train called the Bright Line that goes from Miami up to Orlando, and then eventually it's going to go over to Tampa. We could do that in our sleep to connect the 3 Cs, to connect all of our other metro areas here in the state, and then to have the opportunity to have a rail line that goes all the way to Washington, D.C. Steve knows this oh so well. How many times have you been on a plane to D.C.? I mean,
And stuck because of the winter weather, yes.
Right.
It sucks.
Absolutely.
That's a technical term.
So we have to figure the transportation and the rail out. It's much needed here.
Don't forget there's Wi-Fi too on some of these trains too, so you can work.
Like the Acela going from Washington to New York.
Yeah.
There's you can work, and it's fast. It's awesome.
And Mr. Stivers, I mentioned fantasy football. Do we even talk about the name of your team or no?
Oh, it was the Stivers Americans, and we finished second to Rodney Davis.
Okay.
So and Pat Teaberry finished like 4th or 5th. So I felt good about that.
I thought the name was going to be questionable, but that's good. All right. Do we have any other questions?
Thank you all. Kathleen Fox, watching online, says, young people I know are leaving Ohio to live in places that are welcoming to all. While Ohio's legislature seems focused on culture war bills, what does business think?
Well, we are not a culture war organization, but we do want to make sure that Ohio we will sometimes begrudgingly get involved in those fights if we feel like we have to. We try to discourage our legislators from being involved in those issues and prefer they focus on the economic development issues. And occasionally we will get drug into those, not willingly though, because that's not what we really focus on. But when they become especially acute, sometimes we will get involved and have gotten involved. But it's not what I wake up in the morning thinking I want to work on the culture war issues on either side, I'm not going to lie. But I do and have gotten involved in them in the 3 years I've been here, because occasionally things go so far that we've got to, members that get really worked up and say it's going to cost them their employees, or people are going to leave Ohio, things like that. So again, we're never going to be a social impact organization, not what we do. We're a business organization, but where things impact business and occasionally things like that, we will get involved in, but it's probably not going to be the first thing I think about every morning.
Yeah. I was with Mayor Buddy Dyer from Orlando, City of Orlando, last week, and he said something that stuck with me. He said, I work on the things that I can control. And to Steve's point, we're a business advocacy organization. If you want to pique the interest of the business community, show us the numbers. Show us how it's going to economically impact our membership. And that's when we start to pay attention.
Good afternoon. Scott Johnson with Aspire, where I serve as the director of the newly created Central Ohio Workforce Development Network, which is a collective impact network of 13 service providers here in Franklin County. I appreciate all of the context that you placed around immigration reform, DEI, housing, but I noticed when you mentioned the focus on workforce, we leaned heavily into the K-12 system, our post-secondary education system, which are great. But in the state of Ohio right now, is according to the United Way and their United for Alice report, over 40% of all of our households struggle to make ends meet on a daily basis. In Franklin County, some of our state representative districts are at over 55%. So I'd like to know how both organizations lean in to supporting their members and potential members and helping people skill up so that they can gain economic mobility.
So we've got a partnership around the Tech Cred program that is totally, Tech Cred is all about upskilling folks. Now it's more focused on the tech space, but it's where you guys really control the rest of it, and Tech Cred is the only place where there's some innovation out there. And so we have a partnership with a company called FlashPass and have encouraged big and small members and even non-members to get involved. Tech Cred will upskill your employees, and the state will pay for it. And it doesn't cover everything because it has to have some sort of tech advantage, but that's where the big increases in people's pay are right now, is if you can gain a little more tech experience. So it really has been a great way to upskill employees at existing companies and not have the company have to pay for it. And I think we've gotten about 65 companies and our FlashPass program is 5 months old to sign up for at least one employee. So, you know, it's you make impact where you can. We've informed all of our members, and we had 65 of our companies so far in a few months sign up and get somebody in the program. So we're excited about the beginnings of that program. I do want to say Aspire does a really great job of getting workforce stuff done. Workforce is, you know, the three big issues that we work on right now are workforce, they're taxes, and they are energy generation and transmission. Those are the three most urgent issues that our board wants us to focus on right now. And workforce has been on the top 3 for 5 years. Now you might hear it as number 2 instead of number 1. People are more talking about energy, but workforce is still really, really important. And with every new economic development win we get, it puts pressure on the incumbent workforce and challenges our workforce. So what Aspire does is really important. Thanks for what you guys do. We're trying to do a little bit to add to what you do, and we think this intern thing would really help keep more of the talent we import temporarily into Ohio, which we think is really, really important. My friends at the Business Roundtable and Ohio Excels do a great job in the K through 12 space. We kind of support what they do there. I try not to reinvent the wheel on anything, so when somebody's doing a great job, we support what they're doing, and the Business Roundtable and Ohio Excels are doing a great job helping on the K through 12 space right now.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. So yes, our workforce team is consistently looking for partners to help in this area. You know, we have programming that we do as well, Elevate CBUS, where we're taking executives that are already in their careers and trying to make sure that they have elevated leadership tools to help them be better in the industry. Accelerate Columbus, that's another program that we have. So we're constantly looking and working with partners to make sure that we're bringing the best and the brightest to our economy.
We have about 3 minutes left for a final question.
I'll try not to take all 3 minutes. How you doing? Jason Jenkins, Chief Diversity Officer for the City of Columbus. Question in regards to programs. So Derrick spoke a lot about programs focused on black and brown people. And the reason why I'm asking that question around black and brown people, because historically they have been disadvantaged across the board. So I was wondering what the state is doing to really dive into that community, and I'll even take Appalachia as well, because you are the state, you have a different economic base. What are some direct programs that are happening at each level, whether at the state or at the chamber, Columbus Chamber, to really dive into those communities? And then also, what sectors are you seeing grow rapidly so individuals that are listening can really focus on those areas within their businesses?
Thank you. Thanks for that question. So we at the Ohio Chamber have been focused in our Corporate Responsibility Opportunity Committee in building sort of opportunity for folks in disadvantaged communities. We do a podcast and a mentoring program in those communities, and our research foundation is actually working to bring a whole library of entrepreneurship training to disadvantaged communities, which we're super excited about, and we're going to publish that a little bit later this year. Demetrius Thomas, who runs our research foundation, is doing a great job on that. We have a partnership with a lot of the diverse chambers, whether they be, the Columbus African American Chamber, Cincinnati African American Chamber, other diverse chambers. From Somali Chamber here in Columbus is another one. We meet with them about once a month to just coordinate activities and talk about what we're doing and talk about opportunity. You also ask about, and that's the highlights of some of the stuff we're doing. I'm happy to get into more detail after the program. But the other thing is, you ask about what we're seeing sort of growing out there. There is a lot of opportunity in the STEM space, whether it's computer programming and or servicing of technology, and those are things that people can do that are very scalable. The entry cost is not super high in most of those businesses. One of the things we notice in disadvantaged communities is they sometimes start their businesses in businesses that are really hard to scale, which is one of the reasons that they might be the food business, or it might be, like the hair care business, or it might be, those are a couple of little examples, but they're businesses that are much harder to scale. And so one of the things we're adding to our entrepreneur courses is helping people understand which businesses are easier to scale to create generational wealth, and that should be the goal of all of this. And we have a partnership with the Buckeye State Black Chamber. We're helping support and stand them up. We're giving them free office space. We're raising them money, giving them money, and trying to help them as they try to build capacity as well.
And we're running almost, we're out of time, but quickly,
Derrick.
You want to quickly say anything?
I talked about the Urban Business Connection. We also have a program called Cultivate Us, where we're working with our immigrant and new American population on business skills. And we also have the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce also has office space at our facility where they can, learn and grow their businesses as well. So, thank you.
Lastly, from me, if there's any huge announcement you want to make where there's a major industry retooling their supply chain, coming to Columbus and Ohio, do you want to break the news right now? Is there anything, I know the answer to this, I think, but is there anything that we should know?
There is going to be an announcement pretty soon coming.
That was not the answer I was expecting, so that's good.
Cleveland Browns are going to win the Super Bowl 2025.
All right, with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Carrie Schmidt for some of our concluding remarks. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, appreciate that. What a great conversation. Good insights, good information, especially in a moment, oh my goodness, I'm 5'2", especially in a moment of such uncertainty, but so thrilled to hear its state of opportunity. Thank you to our sponsors for today's forum, the Columbus Chamber, Huntington Bank. We're grateful to our presenting sponsors of the live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and the Columbus Dispatch, and of course the Ellis for hosting us. And a very special appreciation for today's speakers, Derrick Clay, Steve Stivers, and of course our host for today, Clay Gordon. Speaking of conveners, that's what the CMC does. So thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us, and look ahead and join us as we continue to host these forums. Next week, Women's Wealth is Central Ohio's Growth is sold out for in-person. You can still join the conversation online, so please join the live stream and book yourselves for some of the future ones. Thank you, be safe, have a great day.